The last true god of Warcraft. What could this be about? I'm pretty sure he's talking about Elune here. And there's a lot of interesting lore about Elune. I've seen comments in my other videos about who Elune could be. Some people think Elune is from the Void. Some people think Elune is Azeroth. I don't know. But let's see what Bellular has to say.
This is Elune. Elune, moon goddess of the Night Elves, a pillar of Warcraft's mythology for years. And it all happened here in the Warcraft 3 manual, an epic document from so many of our childhoods, and a document in which Chris Metzen laid down the core of Warcraft as we would come to know it in the form it's developed into
Elune is the
today.
Earth Mother, maybe.
And if Elune is the greatest mystery of Warcraft 3's manual, then this guy, Sargeras, essentially is the same, but for Warcraft 2's manual. Of course, by World of Warcraft through to the Burning Crusade and into Legion, Sargeras slowly became a known quantity to us, especially thanks to Warcraft Chronicle. But while Warcraft 2's big new addition to the lore was quite explained, the same didn't really happen to
Warcraft. Real quick on Sargeras, I always think it's interesting how his belt changed in art. Like, there's no skull here, but isn't it in the cinematic where he's stabbing Sargeras stabs Azeroth? Isn't his belt? Doesn't his belt have like a skull on it or something? I wonder if that was just like, yeah, it's right here. Is that just like some kind of like, you know, just like a different art style, or was this meant to symbolize something? Because I mean, his belt clearly has a skull on it, whereas here it's just like a big crystal. Domination magic, something, I don't know.
Quite explained. The same didn't really happen.
It's just probably an art style thing. I'm probably just reading into it too much.
Warcraft 3's big addition to the lore. Elune. I mean, sure, mysteries have been teased. Khadgar wonders if she created the Prime Naru. Xal'atath thinks she's an upstart goddess. The Winter Queen felt betrayed by her. If she's all nice, then what's the deal with this whole Night Warrior thing? And if to the Toran she is represented as the daughter of Azeroth, of course in the form of the moon, then how do we...
What if she is the actual daughter of Azeroth? Like Azeroth had a Titan, a baby Titan child, and that is what Elune is. And she's been trying to free her mother this entire time. That would be an interesting
square that with Warcraft's now oversaturated,
who
yet
fucked Azeroth, though?
That's the question. Cosmology. And how will Metzen and the team take the mess of Shadowlands onwards and actually shape that into a cohesive whole? Well, already patch 10.2 is trying to take a stab at that. Elune is powerful, fundamental. Does this throw old lore out the window? Thankfully, no. It does, though, add a pinch of intrigue that'll go well with a pinch of today's sponsor. U.GG, click the link in the description, or just go to u.gg/wow. And
you'll be checking out a bunch of videos in the next couple days.
Data-driven talents, character builds, base gear, and more. No guides, just quick, easy insights into the data. And that's what they do. They crunch the data of what players are actually doing in World of Warcraft.
There you go,
pull insights from that, and then slickly give you all the info you want in one place.
Guys, check it out.
I'm going to be playing a lot more of my Paladins soon, so I can check out where Paladins happen to be in the various different tier lists based on what people actually play. And they're not astounding in raw performance, but you know what? Doesn't matter to me that much, honestly.
They really do.
Look at their tier, you see, they generally have a fairly high tier because even if they ain't doing the most DPS in the world, they're damn popular. And hey, playing a Pally.
Look at that, Ret Pally, 20th, but S tier. I'm telling you, man, there's something kinky about Ret Pally. They've been pumping.
Good. So then what I can do is I can check out popular builds for each spec in different types of content.
To the web.
I can look at things like popular gear that people are wearing, stat priorities. It really is that simple. They just crunch the numbers from thousands and thousands of player runs, and you get all the learnings in one place for free.
I'll demonstrate.
So if I need to learn something about classes or stats or anything like that,
yeah, we're going to pug rate the shit out of Heroic today.
/wow.
Get that shit.
Links down below. It's an awesome resource, and thanks to them for sponsoring. As Prime Designate, Odin cleaned up a lot of Azeroth's history to fit his own ends. He put the Titans in as the top dogs and hid the advancements of anyone else.
To fit his own ends or to do what the Titans wanted him to do. I mean, he's really probably a Titan bitch at the end of the day. I think that's what Odin is.
The Black Empire, or
he's like,
as
call him
we
the tip
recently
of the spear.
discovered, Elune. Odin's origin for life on the world went like this. The Titans showed up to a lifeless void blasted Azeroth. They defeated the old gods. Then Freya spawned the wild gods who created the original animals and intelligent races like furbolgs, trolls, and Toran. Sometime later, though, the curse of flesh reached the Titan-forged soldiers and laborers, resulting in dwarves and humans. Throw in orcs and Draenei from Draenor and Argus, and you've got the origin of
the gift of flesh. He's got to say it right. He's saying it wrong. It's the gift of flesh, guys. Don't let the Titans fool you.
All life that you see on Azeroth. Patch 10.2, our first big expedition into the Emerald Dream, shows that most of that early lore is in fact still intact. It's still there. It works. It is just a simple job of unpicking a few of Odin's edicts, managing to safely merge old and new. So let's get at it. Freya's boss, Aenar, did grow life in Azeroth, but she had the help of Elune. You see, life did actually exist before the Black Empire. It had deep elemental origins, but it was only able to thrive post-Titan.
Yeah.
The Emerald Dream...
By the way, Elune in this, the whole thing that she created, by the way, Aman'Thul hated this shit. He was so pissed when he found out she went about creating life on Azeroth. He don't like that stuff. So this whole thing with Elune and her creating it, it's an interesting one. I wonder how Elune convinced her to do something so unrestricted. You know, it's not controllable. Life is very uncontrollable. It's chaos. Yeah, exactly. So it's an interesting one.
Are older than the Titans ordering, but it's clear
I don't know how she was
had a connection to those who ruled that realm, namely Elune. What I want to do, though, is start with Un'Goro Crater, because from the gameplay experience, that's where this story begins. Un'Goro literally means godlands in Kiraji, and they weren't talking about old gods. There's always been Titan lore in there, but back in the days of us farming Devil Sore Leather, its only clear indication were the pylons scattered throughout the zone. Back then, we were told there was a meteor crash, and that's why there's a crater. But even in vanilla, geologist Larksbane speculated that Un'Goro was once home of the Titans when they inhabited Azeroth, and that Aman'Thul himself watched over the Godlands. But the truth was revealed in Wrath. Suddenly our planet was full of Titan installations from Ulduar to Uldum, and what we discovered in Sholazar completely recontextualized Un'Goro.
Those Titan installations are going to play a big role in the War Within. I mean, literally, Metzen said at BlizzCon, we're going to find out why all these Titan installations are slapped into the crust of Azeroth. So we're going to find out a lot more about this stuff.
It wasn't a random meteor strike
Probably
or the home of the Titans,
but
it was the place where Keeper Freya created and experimented
on
life,
basically.
Right, as the world was being ordered. We were essentially told that in the wake of the Black Empire, Azeroth was so thoroughly corrupted that life was erased, and that because of that, the Keepers needed to start fresh. So, with Un'Goro, Sholazar, and the Veil of Eternal Blossoms, they built big factories. These were made by Freya, who, even per the artifact weapon lore, created the wild gods and all other life from that. And it is that bit of Freya and wild gods that's where our story begins to fall apart. In Chronicle, the origin of life was pushed way back. It turned out that proto-drakes had a elemental origin. Races like trolls and Toran had the same. And in the recent time rifts, in timelines not dominated by the Titans, we actually see Toran, which very much says they're pre-Titan. And that is something
trolls and Toran specifically are an interesting race because they are in fact like of Azeroth, basically. Like, they are originated from here. You got the humans, dwarves, and, like, gnomes and stuff. Those are Titan creations that were, given the curse of flesh, and that's how they are what they are today. But these boys, they're an interesting one.
Actually fits the Tauren's very own stories about their people and their past. And even in Ulduroth, the Titan Utopia timeline, Keepers are studying intelligent species that predate the Keepers arriving in the world. And then there's the whole Wild God inconsistency. There's simply no way that Freya could have created the Wild Gods. I mean, Ardenweald literally shows how they naturally manifested on many other worlds across the Great Dark, which does beg some huge questions about the Emerald Dream, because no longer is it a realm made by Titans. No longer is it a small blueprint of Azeroth. No, 10.2 confirms that it isn't. Basically, it confirms that the Emerald Dream is a walled garden. Titans, Keeper Freya, they walled that off to do their own thing, but it is part of a more fundamental whole. Obviously, that's a fundamental...
I always thought the Emerald Dream was more of a creation by Freya the Titans to basically keep Azeroth asleep, keep her at bay. Make her think that everything's okay, you're dreaming, you're You're staying asleep. And then the Emerald Nightmare was the thing created by the old gods to wake her up. But basically, he's saying it's like an experimental zone where Freya was free to, release her tension, release her desire to create life without it impacting Azeroth. That's what he's saying. It's like a little sandbox for her to play in without pissing off Aman'Thul because he's such a bitch. He doesn't like life.
Plane or whatever, where Elune carries.
You're wrong, but you can definitely
power.
think, yeah, I'm fine with being wrong on that. It's possible that I'm wrong, and this is just a sandbox for Freya at the end of the day. But it feels like it has so much more connection, because we literally take the new world tree into our world, right? From the Emerald Dream into Azeroth. So we're connecting the two now. So what does that mean? Is our sandbox now leaking into Azeroth? It's an interesting
sway, because Elune does seem to be a being of life. And of course, that is where all of our life lore starts to come together. And the things that I listed as inconsistencies in the Titan story of life,
we haven't heard of Ul'das. No, we have not.
Explained by a relationship, one between Elune and Aenar that predates the Titans coming to Azeroth. And that's because we know that Aenar and Elune knew each other. And because of that, it makes total sense for Freya to, yes, have introduced the wild gods of the Emerald Dream.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To Azeroth, thus fixing the inconsistencies, making new work with old.
That makes sense. Those spirits came through Elune. Yeah, okay.
Whose lore book, named On the Nature of the Emerald Dream, sets up two things. First, that the Emerald Dream is much older than the Titans, and yeah, they just ordered a section of it. Second, that there's a group of beings at its center, and I just love how this is described to us, and we're going to go there. Today's video is a trip.
That's an interesting one.
Add to that then the Winter Queen calling Elune her sister, and the seed of a Nordrassil being a literal binding of life and death between the Winter Queen and Elune.
Yeah, a binding of life and death. You're kind of hinting at that, King Julian, that you called it, like, instead of tree of life, a tree of death. Yeah, it did come from the Shadowlands. So that's also an interesting thought, that it's a connection between the two.
It can be pretty down.
If you remember, I mean, the Night Elves used to have immortality. Part of that was their connection to the World Tree and everything. So they couldn't die. And now this new World Tree comes about. But the Night Elves are not mortal, so they can. It's interesting.
Sure that Elune is a god of life.
It's all about balance,
to
yeah.
Eyes of the Earth Mother. Yes, our favorite Toran bedtime story. The part about their elemental origin is actually supported elsewhere. They claim that Azeroth herself created and named the elements. Elune and Anshe then took those elements and helped them form first life in the planet, the primal races like the dragons, the Toran, and the trolls. And that is when the old gods turned up and dominated the world. We are at a crossroads of what happens next. From this point, if we believe Keeper Odin and
I don't believe shit he says.
Side of things, then it's purely old gods and a time of sheer void-based misery.
Right.
Believe void, and it's a time of amazing advancement critical to life in Azeroth, which, of course, is what both of those sides would say. But what happened next is fairly solid. The Titans showed up. This is where more of the new lore kicks in, because there's another lore book found in the Emerald Dream in patch 10.2, one telling the story of Elune here. Here's the deal. Azeroth's plight is desperate, and Aenar has a brilliant idea, to use life itself to push back the influence of the old god's Black Empire. So she turns to someone that she has long had a relationship with, someone who is...
Don't forget, like, the whole reason I feel like why the whole re-origination chamber hasn't been used and life on Azeroth hasn't been completely wiped out yet is because the Titans are okay with our existence, because so far we've been protecting Azeroth. We've been pushing back every threat, and it's starting to look like these threats had a goal of waking Azeroth up. The Titans want to keep her asleep and imprisoned, and all we've done up until this point is basically help that to happen, because we pushed back a Cataclysm which could have woken her up with Deathwing. We pushed back Sargeras, which could have, he could have poked his sword into her and woken her up. We pushed that back. The whole Burning Legion pushed back, and we've pushed back the Void on multiple attempts to wake her up. All these old gods and everything, we pushed them back. So far, we are creatures of their doing. We've been helping them, complete their goal. So I'm guessing in the War Within, in these next expansions, we start to, not do the things that they want us to do so much anymore. We start to question them a little bit more. So does the re-origination chamber come back into play? I don't know. You know, are they just going to wipe us out because they don't like what we're doing anymore? Yeah. But we can't free a Gnomeregan from the leper. Yeah, leper gnomes are not. You're never going to beat leper gnomes. That's the ultimate threat.
Her great love, a deity of life with a personal connection to Azeroth.
Poking sword.
She turns to Elune for help and is given a branch of Gehanir, the mother tree of the Emerald Dream. Not the mother tree of the Emerald Dream, the tiny little bit that we see in and around Azeroth, seemingly the mother tree of the Emerald Dream, you know, big E, big D, spanning all of existence, the true Emerald Dream. So Aenar plants that into Azeroth. She plants this branch, and from that, a world tree named Elune Ahir grows. Its roots grow deep, and they spread across the land, bringing life,
roots will grow.
Healing, renewal wherever they go. You can imagine these roots pushing through the purple carapace, covering Azeroth, fighting back that pure void power, helping to unweave the Black Empire from the very flesh of the world. Aman'Thul, leader of the Titan Pantheon, was not in favor of this arrangement. He said that this was uncontrolled life, that this was chaos, and it would not do. So he tore Elune here from the planet. Of course, not being a gardener, he didn't realize the roots were...
I wonder how this shit will play, because she clearly didn't like this. She wasn't about this. Grandpa Aman'Thul shows up. He's like, no fun to be had here, and he rips the tree out. But Belialar's about to say the roots were still very much intact.
Still intact, sustained likely by Aenar. So Aenar, she knew the roots were there and fine, and she chose to not tell Aman'Thul, thus ensuring that the roots of Elune here would forevermore be a fundamental part of Azeroth. Aenar then, when it came time for the Titans to leave, left Freya in charge, and I suppose you can imagine that it wasn't just these roots that she left to her keeper. Now I want you to think back to Odin's story in The Origin of Life, because in that Freya does play a key part. But by that point, of course, the Titans had already been defeated by Sargeras, and they were out of the picture, because quite shortly after Aenar leaves Freya and the Titans leave Azeroth to go and do other things, they're confronted, you know, by Sargeras, and they're gone. Now, all of that then means that because Aman'Thul is pretty much destroyed fairly early on into the story, he could no longer interfere with whatever Aenar had left in motion. And that then left Odin, who obviously, we know, could not quash a rebellion in a world, in a land called Avalorn, likely across the sea in Azeroth, as we learn the Edict of Odin at the very start of the Dragonflight expansion, when we, you know, break into Uldaman and we start raiding it for all sorts of new lore. So if Odin wasn't able to do that, then I really don't think he would have been able to stop Freya doing whatever Freya would have been doing.
Yeah, good point.
And what we do know is she made Ungoro, Sholazar, the Veil of Eternal Blossoms. From there, the Emerald Dream had its anchor in Azeroth. And that
Veil of Eternal Blossoms, which we are returning to. We're going to go back there, and all these updated assets and stuff. And it's looking more like Zalatesh is going to go there and get the heart of Yasharaz or something. There's going to be shit that goes on here. We're going back to there.
That meant that wild gods Loa and August Celestials manifested from the dream, and as Odin went about ordering the planet, Freya likely continued her boss's mission, which ultimately was subverting Aman'Thul's will. Clearly, Aenar has an understanding that life itself is key to defending Azeroth. And understanding all this, our universe just got way bigger, and I'd like to point out here, bigger and better in a way that failed in Shadowlands, because this is being respectful of old lore. It's not ripping the old Emerald Dream to shreds and humongously like retconning our understanding of things. It's doing this in a way that makes sense with where the story is going, where it had been, and the ultimate realities of trying to tell a story over 29 years in a video game medium where the next version of your game is, in a way, got to be a bit bigger and better and more exciting with bigger things and more stakes.
Definitely underrated.
Which is a little bit different to say an author writing, you know, a book series like a George.
I'm never going to get Zalatesh right.
Like thing. So here, This isn't shoehorning in loads of cosmic world building. This is bringing it all together and helping it make sense. Brief pause. There is out-of-game context here that's actually really vital for you guys to know. There have been clear staffing changes at the top level of Warcraft narrative. I have heard things. I can't really say more. That is a dam that will likely burst on its own. What I can do is point you towards Holly Longdale, one of the most important figures really leading World of Warcraft. Right. And she said that as a player who has played WoW since beta, that she felt Shadowlands was off, that it didn't feel right.
Yeah, it did feel like a departure from the lore.
I imagine people will come to understand things in the future, but yeah, from what I've been led to believe, this whole situation with World Soul Saga is basically going, right, here are the things that we cannot just literally undo and retcon. Our task now is to have this go in a good direction that feels like Warcraft and feels good to players. Yeah. As an example, you know the writing in the World Soul cinematic, in the War Within cinematic with Thrall and Anduin, you know the way they actually talked like people? Their vocal performances were not stilted.
It was awesome.
It was mature. Yeah. It had genuine gravity.
Yeah.
That whole thing was written by Metzen shortly after he came back, and he was scoping out the future of the game. So, handwritten by him, just as he did the first canonical reference to the Emerald Dream in the manual of Warcraft 3. In that, it's called Ysera's realm. Not Elune's, not the Titans, Ysera's. It is therefore rather fitting that in this patch we've been in the Eye of Ysera, and it's through that eye that all this lore is kind of connected. Ysera was uplifted by the Titans, yet was entrusted with the dream by Elune, and acted as its guardian ever since. Have you ever thought about that with the modern story with Ysera, likely why she has been an important character, even though they fumbled things and the whole Malfurion switcheroo that didn't really land? But the point there is, uplifted by Titans, protected by Elune, and we know that the gift Elune gave to Aeonar to plant in the world was destroyed by Aman'Thul. Aman'Thul, who was okay with the uplifting of Ysera, but of course Ysera was directly uplifted, with the powers of Aeonar, I believe, through Freya. Quite interesting, isn't it? So, I think by now you can really see how this life lore is lining up. And I think as long as you accept that Odin told us a few lies to get us here, it broadly all works. But it leaves us with the one prickly issue of Elune. So let's do that. In another lore tome called The Nature of the Emerald Dream, a green dragon flies as far as she can outside the bounds of Azeroth's Emerald Dream. And what would happen, and this is, I think, the hard wall in the walled garden, is you would keep on going, away, 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 across what felt like an endless dream, until you would fall asleep, and you would wake up back in the center of the Eye of Ysera. But this dragon, she was determined, and she flew closer to the core of the Emerald Dream, or perhaps further through the bounds placed around the walled-off section that we know of. And she began to feel and perceive things, see things she didn't recognize, things that felt different, new, dare I even say a little bit alien. And one thing that was felt was powerful beings, Titan-level power beings. They were not seen directly. They were not felt in a way where it was understood exactly what they were, just that it was some great and, to that individual, unknown force. And that force, of course, in all likelihood, is Elune and whoever else may be there with her. The other burning question then is this: why, over all other planets, does Elune care about Azeroth? Why are the Night Elves on this planet her favored children over the many races that created Night Warriors elsewhere? Well, that all goes back to Azeroth's core importance to the story, to the very universe. And if Khadgar is right when he speculated that Elune perhaps created the...
No, I mean, Night Elves are of Azeroth, right? Like, they are trolls who, experience the magic of Azeroth from the Maelstrom and everything. Like, not the Maelstrom, sorry, the, oh my god, the freaking, the shit, the power of Azeroth. They were changed by it. Yeah, the Well of Eternity. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The shit. Yeah, exactly. And the Well of Eternity changed them. So basically, I mean, if you wonder why they are the favored children, they are essentially, the ultimate. I guess you could say they're like the true form of Azeroth creating life, because they're trolls who basically came in contact with pure Azeroth energy from the Well of Eternity and became what they are today. So it would make sense that Elune would be very attached to them.
Prime Naru, and of course the Naru, they have a light cycle and a void cycle.
Power from the shit. Yeah, exactly.
Should we then start to read into the light and the dark sides of Elune?
See, High Elves are less pure because they were changed by Arcane and stuff, and that's more Titan connected. At least that's how I've always thought of it. They are Titans are from Arcane magic, like they are arcane beings. So High Elves are more arcane, more Titan related, but Night Elves are just purely, Well of Eternity magic, and that's what created them. Or what evolved them.
After all, calls the Naru potential creations of Elune.
Yeah, we're a lore channel here. The shit that gave them power,
quote,
exactly.
Long
from
lost
the shit.
brethren. Elune may only be the figurative daughter of Azeroth in a myth, as understood by the most ancient of Toran, but she is undoubtedly the one who keeps ensuring that life on the planet thrives. And, as we see in Antorus, whenever Aenar is hunted down by the Burning Legion, of course Aenar in an extremely vulnerable state, Aenar retreats and hides in a world called Elunaria. Literally starts with Elune.
Yeah.
So, where does it all go next? Well, this is a story of two ideologies. One is of Aman'Thul and pure order.
Pure order
where,
and control.
Life uncontrolled isn't acceptable. Some things are what we call weeds, and they must be sprayed with poison and pulled out. The other is Aenar and Elune working together to create and nurture life on Azeroth.
Maybe Aenar becomes the last Titan. Maybe she turns against Aman'Thul at the end, in favor of life. That could be something interesting. It would go with the whole girl, girl power and everything like that. Yeah, girl rising up against the guy. Yeah, it could be. But then she becomes the last Titan and kind of hangs out, on that side of things. Because at the end of the day, if we did just in fact like wipe out the Titans completely, is that really creating balance? In the forces? Is that really what we want to do? Because then you have the whole arcane side of that whole map just completely wiped out. I don't know if we want to do that, or do we want there to be like a last Titan still sitting at the throne controlling things from that side? Yeah, because fuck the Titans. Yeah, or Aenar actually shows herself to be on our side. And she's just been sitting there the whole time, kind of chilling out, waiting for the moment that we're strong enough to fight against him. That could be it.
Aman'Thul's return to the setting is on the cards, and the way things are lining up, we're going to have Elune and Aenar on the same side and disagreeing with him. Of course, in the final Titan, the third expansion in this saga. So there could be big tension down the line, but it is down the line far in the future. What we need to be thinking about is our next expansion, and whilst Iridikron and Xal'atath are up to their nefarious
I agree.
schemes,
I don't think we want any domain to completely
about just
dominate.
how central Elune has been to getting us where we are. Maybe even...
And that's why I always think Azeroth is the balancer of forces. She is not from the Titans. She is not from the, the Shadowlands not from the Void. She is the balancer. And I think that's at the end what we're going to try to create in the last Titan is a balance between all the forces. I don't think wiping out the Titans is the answer. Some of them got to get their asses kicked, that's for sure. Aman'Thul's a bitch, and we need to kill him. That's a guarantee. But do we want to just wipe out the whole Pantheon? Probably not. Or Sargeras is left standing. That could be it too, and he's the last Titan. Either way, I think there has to be somebody to control the arcane forces still.
A more formal appearance will be on the cards. Do remember, it's only recently that we, for the very first time, actually heard Elune, albeit speaking through the body of Tyrande. We'll find out soon anyway, and I just want to point out that if there is a connection to Elune and the Naru, as Khadgar speculated, I just want to leave you with a little brain teaser. What is the deal with the light and void crystal in the War Within? And by the way, Blizzard literally have said it's not the tip of Sargeras' sword. It's a light void crystal.
That's right.
Right? Surrounded by Arathi paladins. Now, What else
Who
goes
wield
from
the true light, the fiery light, not the freaking fake light.
to void? Naru. Does that not make you think about the Ashbringer? You know, the Ashbringer that is believed to be powered by a shard or a crystal of a Naru?
Azeroth is one above, Elune is the balance.
I just want to point out that all these things are kind of tied together, and
that makes sense.
Does really seem like we're going to be answering them soon. Now, if you've enjoyed today's video and you want to learn more about...
Dude, that's what... There's literally a balanced druid spec. You're so right, Wajo. It's all about balance. And right, and that's what Elune is all about, and that's what the druids are.
Azeroth herself, what's really going on? Well, check out this video, which really, in a way, is the kind of one before this one. A bit of a series of us explaining exactly what the hell is going on, because, yeah, there's been a lot. Not all of you have been playing the game for all of this time, and I'm sure there's a few patches you probably dipped out on. But don't worry, we got you covered. Check it out next, and I'll see you over there.
Great video. Yeah, very interesting stuff. I still don't think we really answered what Elune is, but her work with A&R is going to show up in the coming expansions, definitely. And I still wonder, will A&R eventually side with us and side with life? I guess we'll find out.